Wow. Resource control by who? I don't get it. I mean, where's that one coming from? Because if you're saying resource control, you are talking about a state that is a multi-ethnic state. I mean, practically almost every ethnic group there has, you know, their own resources. They have oil in their domain. So I don't know who is talking about it. I think that rather than talk about resource control, I think it's, or maybe if you're referring to the federal government taking over the resources of the states, I don't know, because they have heard such arguments in some places. But again, let me even ask a question.
All right.
Based on what my brother Liberals has just canvassed, you know, did the president need to have waited until there was a fight, a physical fight between the executive and the legislature? You're talking about Operation Wetie, where there was a fight within the assembly, and then there was a state of emergency declared. In this case, we are talking about two arms of government. So the only functional arm of government was the judiciary. And the judiciary was not even ready to help deal with the issue. The Supreme Court had given the judgment and told the governor, you were totally wrong to have used only 3 people for your state assembly, for not having a state budget, for seizing the allocation meant for the assembly, for pulling down and destroying the structure of the state, this assembly complex. The Supreme Court didn't mince words. And I'm even disappointed that the judiciary arm of the government in the state will not align with the Supreme Court, because they are both judiciary. So for them to have, even from what he's saying, because I don't know if the matter had gotten up to the point where they needed the support of the chief judge, you know, that one is just hearsay. So, but in any case, with all intent and purpose, the chief judge, the judiciary in the state, ought to have aligned with the judgment of the Supreme Court and done the needful, assuming it had gotten to them that they wanted to impeach. The Supreme Court didn't, it wasn't even the assembly that declared that the governor, committed those impeachable offenses. It was clear from the Supreme Court judgment. But unfortunately, that judgment looks like a lame dog. He couldn't bite. He could only bark. Because, the governor kept on doing what he wanted to do. It was difficult for the state assembly to even get the commissioners whose appointments were illegal, because they were screened by an assembly that was illegal, the 3-man assembly. Now, the authentic assembly wanted them to appear before to explain. Since they didn't resign, the right thing would have been, even if the governor didn't drop them, they ought to have resigned, just like what happened in with the local government chairman. So they refused to appear. Rather, they went to court against the state assembly. It's all part of the confusion. When we're talking of imminent danger, all this, are built up into that. So then the RISEC also came and announced that they were going to start the process of another election. That's another trigger for more crisis, because these other people in the assembly will feel that they will be also edged out. And don't forget, I've always said it. I don't know why people, keep pretending as if they don't know. The assembly people, the authentic assembly, were owed for 1 year and 7 months. And I felt that the right thing for the governor to have done the moment the Supreme Court gave that judgment was to instruct that their monies be released to them. It's another way of playing the politics. You understand? So he didn't do that. Rather, he said he was waiting for the CTC of the Supreme Court judgment. Everybody felt that he was just buying time and delaying. Even the judgments from the Supreme Court, I'm sure his legal team knew that they were going to have a very bad day, because it was very clear from the High Court to the Appeal Court that the governor had a bad case. But because they needed time and they were buying time to be able to do the things they wanted to do, they continued on that path. So at what point would have the president... Look, I don't want to believe that the FUBARA is the worst hit here. I think that rather the lawmakers are the worst hit, because they've not been paid. If they've been sitting, they had their own assembly, a makeshift assembly in the assembly quarters where they live. And don't forget, there was a day the governor visited that place and unannounced, and there was a threat to pulling down that place, and maybe where he claimed the structure belonged to him. So who knows what would have happened, and maybe they would have also been sent packing. So they had no choice. Then again, did they also want the state of emergency? I do not want to believe that was a,
so looking at all of these developments now. Do you actually think, and you have mentioned some of these things, do you actually think that there would have been room for peace if the state of emergency was not in place?
No, there's no way. That's the truth of the matter.
Okay.
What the president has done was to send a signal And I think that this is even what will now begin to make everybody to reason well and say, look, let's just come together and see how we can agree. If they do not want to do that, the emergency rule will stay, will remain, and people will see, until people begin to see that there is an attempt at peace, where their dialogue, people are shifting grounds, and don't forget that they all belong to the same political family. Forget about those who are meddlesome interlopers, who are coming now to advise and give advice that they didn't know when they started. I've always said that from the beginning. So this emergency rule is what will probably ensure that they decide to go back to where they started. And if they refuse to, well, so be it. The administrator continues his job. But for now, what Rivers people want to see is that there's relative peace, there's calm. Now, my brother Liberal said it was not about the bombing, the attack on the pipelines. And if you go to NNPC website, you see pipelines. Yeah, but you can see the speed. We had one at the Cotton Channel. The next day, we had one at Andoni. The next day, we had another one. The speed at which and Ogoni, these things are happening. Yeah, they don't really have to be Ogoni people. Ijo people, when you say Ijo, almost everybody claims to be Ijo. Some are part Ijo, some are half Ijo. And then some were conscripted into the struggle. They may not totally be Ijo, but they are part of the larger group. So when these things happen, and don't forget, there will also be people who want to take advantage of the crisis to do what they wanted to do. So the important thing is that the nation was being threatened, because that's where the economy actually depends on the oil. So there's no way we would have allowed this to continue. Right. So if this emergency rule is what will actually bring them to a common table, so be it.
All right, let's